Welcome back to the game. I'm Mark Simon. We're joined by Assemblyman Rich Gordon, who's finishing up his first term in office, and we're talking about the vote on high-speed rail. And in the interest of full disclosure, I work for Caltrain, which is going to benefit from this. The way you described your vote and what you were voting for made it sound as though you were voting for everything but a high-speed rail plan. And at some point or other, people were going to say, wait a minute, first of all, this is just high-speed rail's way of getting in a place where people don't want it. And second of all, you shouldn't be able to take money that's supposed to be for high-speed rail and spend it on Caltrain, and spend it on LA Metro, and spend it on Amtrak in the Central Valley.
Well, these high-speed rail funds are being used in a way that prepares the Central Valley, LA, and this region for eventual high-speed rail. But we are going to be quite some time away from getting to high-speed rail, and particularly in this region, given the plan that's been adopted by the High-Speed Rail Authority. We're only short another $60 billion to be able to do high-speed rail in California.
That sounds like a big number to me.
It's a huge number, yeah. And where those dollars come from, none of us know. So we use the funds that were available to us now, that could only be used on these kinds of rail projects, couldn't be used for any other purpose, wouldn't help us with education, wouldn't help us with parks.
I'm sorry, but say that again, because a lot of people criticize the plan and saying, when we need money for our schools, why don't we take this money? Let's assume that the legal issue of the voters voted to allocate this money for high-speed rail is resolved. Why can't the specific funds in some way, even by a vote of the public, be reallocated towards something else?
Well, you would have to go back to the public and say, the bond, the funding authority that you were given, which is an authority for rail only, we want you to do something different with it. But for now, under the law, these funds need to be spent on rail, and that's what they were designated for. So we couldn't have used them for other government purposes. Now, in all candor, these are bond funds. That means it's money we borrowed or will be borrowing. There's a debt service on that, and that has some impact on the general fund. But the debt service is programmed into the state budget. It has been planned, so we're prepared for that.
Yeah. The other lingering issue still is that it's really not a two-track proposal. Is somehow or another still going to be four-track. That at some point or another someone will force it to be four-track. That high-speed rail still wants it to be four-track on the peninsula. And I gather there were safeguards put into this law that satisfied that question in your mind.
I believe that the legislation that we passed clearly delineates that this, from here forward, we move into a blended system with Caltrain and high-speed rail eventually, sharing a corridor that is within the existing right-of-way owned by Caltrain. It doesn't require any expansion, doesn't require additional property, and that right-of-way can't handle four tracks. We also, said that no aerial structures, so you couldn't put tracks on top of each other, except in those places where communities want that. So it really is a community decision. The other important thing is that a lot of folks don't understand, nothing was changed in our environmental review process by approving these funds, particularly the funds to electrify Caltrain. There will be a full environmental review. Communities along the peninsula will have an opportunity to understand, discuss, and comment on the environmental impacts of electrification.
Let's shift gears a little bit and talk about the state budget. It is balanced precariously. And basically, as they say in Vegas, you're betting on the come, that this ballot measure in November that's going to increase income taxes on people making more than $250,000 is going to pass and generate the revenue that balances the budget. Is that a responsible way to balance a budget?
Well, we could have made cuts now, but that would have meant that if the tax measure passed, we would have stopped a whole set of activities and had to restart. I think it is more responsible to keep those activities going until the point that the citizens decide what they want to spend on their government. And if the citizens say yes to the tax measure that's on the ballot, proposed by the governor, then schools receive continued funding. The other activities that we identified that would be cut if the funding doesn't occur would continue. If we don't get the tax measure passed, there's a set of activities, including funding for schools, funding in public service, that would be cut.
Why not just cut? Why not? The household example everybody loves to use is that when my income goes down, I have to cut my expenditures. Why not just do that and not raise taxes? Why not just live within your means? I mean, it sounds like like in a household, you're still going to spend money on upgraded cable, but you're going to keep buying lottery tickets and hope that you cash them in.
Well, let me point out that when I got to Sacramento, Governor Brown had just been elected, and there was an immediate announcement that the state faced almost a $27 billion deficit. That's a structural problem, long-term structural problem that we have in the state of California, that we've been spending more than we take in. We've reduced that structural deficit in the last 2 years by 75%. We've made significant cuts. We've already cut in education. We've cut in health. We've cut in welfare. And so I think we've kind of reached a point where if you're going to deal with solving a structural deficit problem, you've got to do two things. You can't probably achieve it all by cuts. You've also got to raise some revenue. And so I think that this is a responsible plan that's been proposed, because we've made cuts. We're asking for more revenue. And obviously, if we don't get the additional revenue, we'll have no choice. There will be further cuts. And we've described what we think those are going to be.
We're going to take another break. Don't go away. And you stick around, too. We'll be right back.